The secretary please call the roll.
Director Garcia.
Present.
Director Gokul-Kandi is absent and excused. Director Jackson has also been excused for tonight. Director Herndon.
Present.
And Chair Zomber.
Present.
And we also have Director Leonard has joined us on the floor tonight. That is 3 present. We can proceed.
Thank you. The Pledge of Allegiance was recited at the previous meeting. This meeting is being conducted from the Central Services Building. This meeting may also be accessed via live stream on the MPS website and on the MPS YouTube stream, the links to which may be found on the MPS website on the broadcast page. Before we begin tonight's meeting, we will have a short announcement regarding interpretation services for the Spanish-speaking members of our audience.
Buenas tardes y bienvenidos a la Junta de la Mesa Directiva de las Escuelas Públicas de Milwaukee. Si desea escuchar esta reunión en español, por favor llame al 312-626-6799 e introduzca el número de reunión 832-0725-4267 seguido por el símbolo de número. Luego, introduzca el código 883149, seguido por el símbolo de número. Nuevamente, para escuchar esta reunión en español, llame al 312-626-6799 e introduzca el número de reunión 832-0725-4267, seguido por el símbolo de número. Luego, introduzca el código 883149, seguido por el símbolo de número.
For each of our items of business, we will hold a discussion and public hearing. If you wish to speak, please fill out a speaker slip and bring it to our secretary, Dr. Owen Moore. We have no virtual speakers registered. The board will accept public comments on tonight's agenda items. Speakers may only address the item for which they have registered. Questions from the public may not be answered during the public comment period. Following public comment, the board will hold a discussion and no additional comments will be accepted. When you are called upon to speak, please state your name and spell your last name for the record. For the sake of fairness and to give everyone a chance to speak, the chair reserves the right to limit the length of time allowed to any one speaker. Written testimony will be accepted for transmittal to the board. Send the testimony to the Office of Board Governance, P.O. Box 2181, Milwaukee, Wisconsin 53201, or fax to 414-475-8071, or email it to governance@milwaukee.k12.wi.us. Just as a reminder, Robert's Rules of Order dictates that all comments should be directed to the chair, who will determine the most efficient way to address them. For the safety of all and to ensure the good order of the meeting, harassment or intimidation tactics of any kind will not be tolerated. Anyone who engages in such harassing or intimidating words or actions will immediately be asked to cease. If such behavior continues, a recess will be called and the offending parties will be removed from the meeting. Anyone ejected from the meeting may continue to listen to the meeting or access the agenda items online. However, the individual will not be allowed to rejoin the meeting. Also, no one other than members of the board, designated staff, and those who have been invited to present or participate in items of business will be allowed on stage before, during, or after meetings of the board and its committees. Finally, for our listening audience, if you wish to access this evening's agenda items and attachments online, you may do so by visiting the Meetings, Agendas, and Minutes page of the MPS website. We have a full agenda. Now let's begin. Madam Secretary, item 1.
Item 1 is action on a request to approve revisions to Administrative Policies 4.05, School Nutrition Management, 4.06, Vending Machines, and 4.07, Student Nutrition and Wellness. Madam Chair, the administration has asked for this item to be withdrawn. It will be brought back for consideration in November.
Very well. What is the next item of business?
Item 2 is action on a request to approve revisions to Administrative Procedure 4.03, Security. Madam Chair, the administration has asked for this item to be withdrawn.
Thank you. What is the next item of business?
Item 3 is action on a request to approve revisions to Administrative Policy and Procedure 7.12 Foreign Languages. The recommendation is that the board approve the proposed revisions to the policy and procedure.
Would the administration please present the item?
Chair Zambor and members of the committee, Eduardo Galvan, Interim Superintendent. Per Board Governance Policy 2.11, every fifth year, the board and its designee shall revisit all of its policies, rules, and procedures to determine their coherence and appropriateness to the present mission of the district. This evening, the administration will request your approval for 19 items listed on the agenda. As each item is called, I will turn it over to the sponsor of that item to share key information on the policy and to take any questions you may have. The sponsor of this item, this policy, is Solmaris Gonzalez, and with her is Dr. Trejo. Thank you. Ms. Gonzalez.
Good evening, Chair Sambor and members of the committee. I am Solmaris Gonzalez Chico, Curriculum Specialist for World Language and Language Immersion. Tonight, I'd like to highlight a few key changes and update made to the foreign language policy and procedure. The title of for both policy and procedure has been updated from foreign language to world languages to better align with the global focus of language education in our district. One of the significant updates ensures access for all students, including those with disabilities. This change supports our ongoing commitment to inclusive education, ensuring that every student has the opportunity to participate in world language learning. By hosting language fairs and cultural events, we aim to promote linguistic and cultural diversity. These events will also connect to the Seal of Biliteracy, which recognizes students' proficiency in multiple languages, helping prepare them for success in a globalized society. The updated procedures offer all schools the ability to create a language learning pathway for their students through regular instruction at the middle school level. This ensures that schools can provide a cohesive language education experience that supports students as they progress through different grade levels. Similarly, at the elementary level, procedures are in place for schools to integrate language learning into extended day programs. Schools have the flexibility to implement these opportunities in ways that fit their specific needs and resources, encouraging early exposure to world languages and language immersion. These updates reflect our dedication to creating an inclusive, flexible, and globally focused world language program across the district. Thank you, and I'm happy to address any questions.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to go to any members of the public who wish to make comments.
We have no speaker slips on this item.
Okay. Do committee members wish to make comments or ask questions? Director Garcia.
I just wanted to commend the group that brought this forth. Thank you so much for updating not only the commitment and wording in regards to world languages in our district, but also making sure that it's inclusive language for all of our students. So kudos to you all. Yes, so I just wanted to give a shout out to Ms. Gonzalez Chico, Dr. Trejo, and then obviously Ms. Mims Howell. Thank you for the work that you're doing to ensure that we stay at the forefront of what it means to educate a diverse student base in our school and what it means to really nurture that linguistic capacity for them.
Do any other committee members wish to make comments or ask questions? Director Herndon?
Yes, I too would like to commend you on expanding the offering. My question is specific to staffing. How does this expansion of the program impact staffing?
Administration?
Chair Sambor and members of the committee, in our high school, which is where we have the majority of our teachers. We actually have international teachers where there are openings and allocations. So we have international teachers covering those allocations. And when there is no teachers, we also have an online virtual platform that helps us provide students with online virtual instruction.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion? Oh, sorry, I couldn't, everyone's over here tonight. Mr. Jason.
Thank you, Chair Zambor. Matt Chasen, Office of Accountability and Efficiency. In the proposed procedure, in paragraph 1B, it makes mention of provide, and then in quotes, capitalized bridge courses. And bridge isn't defined in the policy. I just wasn't sure if maybe you could provide an explanation on what that is intended to imply in that usage.
Administration.
Chair Sambor and members of the committee, bridging courses are courses that help students and provide students with what they didn't have in the previous course, and so that they can get to the next level of language acquisition.
Follow-up? Thank you. What is the pleasure of the committee with respect to this item? We need a motion. Director Garcia?
I move that we accept the administration's recommendation to update this board item.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Will the secretary please call the roll?
On Director Garcia's motion to accept the administration's recommendation, Director Garcia,
Aye.
Director Herndon,
Aye.
Chair Zomber.
Aye.
That's 3 ayes, the motion passes.
Madam Secretary, next item, please.
Item 4 is action on a request to approve revisions to Administrative Policy and Procedure 7.13, Exceptional Education Programs. The recommendation is that the board approve the revisions to Administrative Policy 7.13, Exceptional Education Programs.
Would the administration please present the item?
Chair Zambor, members of the committee, Eduardo Galvan, Interim Superintendent. The sponsor of this policy is Dr. Pinter, and he and Mr. Banasic are here to present that.
Thank you, Chair Zomber, members of the committee, Travis Pinter, Senior Director of Specialized Services. We had a few kind of reasons why we made the changes on policy 7.13. So there were some grammatical changes. There was an update to outmoded language, which you'll see throughout. We had several reasons to do that. And then primarily the advent of the centralized eval team, which we now have, which didn't exist when this was created. So there's some language in there you'll see switching from how referrals kind of were placed to what happens now. And then lastly, there was, if you're wondering about the note at the end that was crossed off, that was referred to something outside of our control and in a different site. And so rather than kind of being tied to that, that resource doesn't exist anymore, but rather than finding a current resource there, we share resources in other ways than through this policy that would keep it from being out of our control if they change that link. So those are the primary reasons.
Thank you. Do we have any members of the public who wish to make comments?
We have no speaker slips on this item.
Okay. Do committee members wish to make comments or ask questions? President Herndon.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. For me, I have a question on item 3A. And the last part of the sentence says that the services should be within the district jurisdiction as they are identified, located, and evaluated, including children in all public and private agencies and institutions. My question is that actual private agencies, or does it cover private schools as well?
Administration.
Just clarification on that.
Chair Zambor, members of the committee, the process for screening, which is what A is looking at, an effective process for screening students, does include students that reside in Milwaukee Public Schools, or that reside within the city limits. So referrals come in and we look at them. Now, if they're students with disabilities already and they're attending a private school, yes, we do re-evals. There is also a process where if the student is attending a school or not a private school or anywhere, and they say that there's a concern, we look at some of them. There's a calculation on how many we do.
Thank you. I asked for that clarification because, as everyone knows, it's always a fact of contention that we aren't fully reimbursed for services to special needs students. So I wanted to make sure that our audience understood this is part of the issue here. Thank you.
Thank you. Do any other committee members wish to make comments or ask questions? Okay. What is the pleasure of the committee with respect to this item? Director Garcia.
I move to accept the recommendation of administration on this item.
Will the secretary please call the roll?
On Director Garcia's motion to approve administration's recommendation, Director Garcia,
Aye.
Director Herndon,
Aye.
Chair Zomber.
Aye.
That's 3 ayes, the motion passes.
Madam Secretary, next item, please.
Item 5 is action on a request to, nope, sorry. Item 5 is action on a request to approve revisions to Administrative Policy and Procedure 7.14, Gifted Students Programs. The recommendation is that the board approve revisions to the Administrative Policy and Procedure 7.14, Gifted Students Programs.
Would the administration please present the item?
Chair Zomber, members of the committee, the sponsor of this policy is Dr. Hill, and he and Dr. Diaz can answer any questions as they walk you through this. Thank you.
Good evening. For Administrative Policy and Procedure 7.14 Gifted Students and Programs, the proposed revisions to the policy include the following. The addition of state definition of gifted and talented pupils from Wisconsin Statute 118.35, Parents 1, which was not around when this was initially written, and includes a statement regarding the need for differentiation for gifted and talented pupils. Additionally, the definition of high ability, high potential pupils was added as a term we use in MPS. We also separated programs and services and included high ability, high potential students and services throughout the policy, and then you will also see some grammatical edits. The corresponding procedure revisions include the addition of services and, again, high ability, high potential students, updating identification factors, the inclusion of local norms, updating the process followed at the school, updating the goals at the end to include current terminology, and again, minor grammatical edits throughout the policy. At this time, Dr. Diaz and I can answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Do we have any members of the public who wish to make comments?
We do not.
Okay. Do committee members wish to make comments or ask questions? Director Garcia.
Yes, I just wanted to thank you all for including the definitions for, things that happen internally and also what, really dictates the, I guess, like the framework that we use, as we have, support these programs and then feed into these programs. I know that from, conversations that are happening at the statewide level with, the Wisconsin Association of School Boards, there's a lot of variance in terms of, how school districts kind of stick to the definition that is provided, by DPI, and kind of looking for ways to simplify it. I think that the discourse has been, how do we make this idea that's really supporting these high potential, high achieving students in a way that's not, leaving others students like feel excluded or, like not part of, the ability or able to, be, high potential students. So I think that by providing these definitions, but also for us amplifying the definition of, how we look at potential of students, I think that's really going to help us in terms of, creating classrooms and learning environments where, students are motivated, where teachers, are really trying to pull out the best in all of our students. So thank you for, the work that you're doing, to ensure that, all demographics of our students are really being pushed to their limits.
Thank you. Do other committee members wish to make comments or ask questions? If not, what is the pleasure of the committee with respect to this item? President Herndon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I recommend that we accept the recommendation of administration on this item.
Okay. Will the secretary please call the roll?
On Director Herndon's motion to accept the administration's recommended revisions on this item, Director Garcia? Aye. Director Herndon?
Aye.
Chair Zomber?
Aye.
That's 3 ayes, the motion passes.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, next item, please.
Item 6 is action on a request to approve revisions to Administrative Policy and Procedure 7.17, Summer Academy. The recommendation is that the board approve the revisions to Administrative Policy and Administrative Procedure 7.17, Summer Academy.
Would the administration please present the item?
Chair Zambor, members of the committee, Eduardo Galvan, interim superintendent. The sponsor of this policy is Dr. Hill, and with him is Natalie Anderson to present and answer any questions you may have.
For Administrative Policy and Procedure 7.17, Summer Academy, the proposed revisions to the policy include the clarification of how tuition for non-residents is determined to address the cost of college courses we may offer in Summer Academy, and some minor grammatical edits. The corresponding procedure revisions include the addition of competency-based alternative program, specifying that students may be dropped from a credit-bearing course with 5 consecutive absences within the first 2 weeks of Summer Academy, updating terminology such as exceptional education to special education, and again, some minor grammatical edits. At this time, Ms. Anderson and I are available to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. Do we have any members of the public who wish to make comments?
We do not.
Do any committee members wish to make comments or ask questions? What is the pleasure of the committee? Director Garcia.
I move that we accept the recommendation from administration on this item.
Will the secretary please call the roll?
On Director Garcia's motion to accept the administration's recommendation of revisions on this item, Director Garcia?
Aye.
Director Herndon?
Aye.
Chair Zomber?
Aye.
That's 3 ayes, the motion passes.
Madam Secretary, next item, please.
Item 7 is action on a request to approve revisions to Administrative Policy 7.32, Comprehensive School Counseling Program and related procedures. The recommendation is that the board approve revisions to the Administrative Policy 7.32, Comprehensive Counseling.
Would the administration please present the item?
Chair Zambor, members of the committee, the sponsor of this policy is Dr. Hill, and with him is Ophelia King to present and answer any questions you may have.
For Administrative Policy 7.32, Comprehensive School Counseling Program and related procedures, the proposed policy revisions include the following: moving the report date back, as prior year post-secondary and graduation data is not available until late fall or December typically, and some minor grammatical edits. For the corresponding procedures, the revisions include minor grammatical edits throughout, updating terminology from guidance to counseling, because we no longer say guidance counselors, we say school counselors. And then for the academic and career planning, we do specify who at the school and the district will review and develop the school's ACP plan. At this time, Ms. King and I are available to answer any questions you might have about the policy or either of the procedures.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, do any members of the public wish to make comments?
They do not.
Do committee members wish to make comments or ask questions? Director Garcia.
I just want to, move to accept the recommendation of administration on this item.
Is there further discussion? Will the secretary please call the roll?
On Director Garcia's motion to approve the administration's recommended revisions to this item, Director Garcia,
Aye.
Director Herndon,
Aye.
Chair Zomber.
Aye.
That's 3 ayes, the motion passes. You want to say something? Oh, there's.
They need to move to reconsider this action and then make a new motion.
So it has been noted that there is a separate procedure from the policy, so the motion needs to be to approve revisions to the administrative policy, 7.32.
I move to make those changes.
Madam Chair, members, you would need to make a motion to reconsider your previous action. If that motion passes, you could make a new motion that captures both the policy and the procedure.
Director Garcia.
All right, I would like to withdraw my previous motion and put a new one on the floor. So I would like to move.
I'm sorry, Madam Chair, members, it's a motion to reconsider previous action because
Oh.
we've already called the roll on that one.
Okay.
So you need to reconsider previous action. Once that motion passes, then a member could make a new motion.
All right, I would like to reconsider previous action.
Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
All right, Director Garcia,
Aye.
Director Herndon,
Aye.
Chair Zomber.
Aye.
That's 3 ayes, the motion passes.
Director Garcia, would you like to make a motion?
Yes, I would like to move approval of the recommendation of administration for policy as well as administrative procedure on this item.
All right, on Director Garcia's motion to approve administration's recommended revisions to administrative policy 7.32 and its related procedures, Director Garcia,
Aye.
Director Herndon,
Aye.
Chair Zomber.
Aye.
That's 3 ayes, the motion passes.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, next item, please.
Item 8 is action on a request to approve revision to Administrative Policy 7.36, Promotion and Retention of Students. The recommendation is that the board approve the revision to Administrative Policy 7.36, Promotion and Retention of Students.
Would the administration please present the item?
Chair Zambor, members of the committee, Eduardo Galvan, interim superintendent. The sponsor of this policy is Dr. Hill, and Natalie Anderson is here with him to give you an update and answer any questions you may have.
For Administrative Policy 7.36, Promotion and Retention of Students, the proposed revisions to the policy include the following: some minor grammatical edits, the addition of a sentence which provides students who are admitted and enrolled into an alternative program, such as GED Option 2 or competency-based, to be identified as a senior to allow those students to gain better access to graduation requirements such as the FAFSA, which are restricted to students in grade 12. At this time, Ms. Anderson and I can answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. We have one member of the public who wishes to make comments. Quentin Claybon.
Hello, Quentin Claybon, K-L-A-B-O-N. This is not super important. I just want to say, first of all, that it's truly heartening to see proper revision of policies, a long time coming, as mentioned. I don't want to comment on the policy itself. I just wanted to add a clerical correction. On point 2A, criterion 2, it refers to basic on the state assessment, and the state now calls basic approaching. And as long as you are changing other things, I thought you could update the terminology too. As far as the substance of the policy goes, I think you all know that there have been drastic changes in the cut scores that define those. That said, I don't think that would affect retention, given that a lot of the students who would be affected by that policy would likely be on the low end of the below basic / developing testing spectrum anyway. So I don't think it should affect the substance of which students are affected, just totally a naming convention. Thank you.
Thank you. Do committee members wish to make comments or ask questions? President Herndon.
Mine is not a question as much as it is a statement, and that is almost on an annual basis, we run into parents who are not familiar with the credit process and the number of credits required to move from one grade to the next. I would ask you, how do you plan, or do you have something in place already to correct that issue?
Director
Administration.
Herndon, President Zambor, members of the committee. We do a lot of work trying to educate parents and students about credits. Especially, it is a transition students make from K-8 to middle schools to high school, where they need to earn credits in order to advance from freshman to sophomore and so forth. So some of the vehicles we do would be freshman bridge when students come in. Our school counselors provide in-class lessons to students. And then in terms of parents, we have grade level parent meetings where we go over this information. We also have our Milwaukee Parent Institute, where we partner with our MQ partners, where it's a 6-week program where parents learn a lot of the deeper nuances of the system, the courses they should be looking for on their child's transcript, what a transcript is. So we make multiple efforts to communicate the credit requirement in high schools.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any follow-up? Do other committee members wish to make comments or ask questions? What is the pleasure of the committee with respect to this item? President Herndon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I recommend that we accept the recommendations of administration on this item.
Is there any further discussion? Can you actually pass the gavel for 1 second? Thank you.
I have the gavel.
Okay, thank you. I just want to clarify, are you, actually, could the administration just comment, would you be interested in updating the basic language in the policy? I have a feeling this is probably not the only policy that has that terminology. Maybe it makes more sense to do all of those at once.
Administration.
Chair Zambor, members of the committee, our intention was to bring this policy back in November. We brought it forward because of the importance to our current students in alt-ed, alternative education programs, and we did not want to wait or delay their ability to graduate and access some of those senior requirements. So in November, we are looking to bring this back because we also are aware we need to include some language around Act 20.
Okay,
Director Zambor.
that's it. Thank you. I'll take the gavel back.
Gavel passed.
Thank you. Is there any other further discussion? If not, will the secretary please call the roll?
On Director Herndon's motion to accept the administration's recommendation on this item, Director Garcia,
Aye.
Director Herndon,
Aye.
Chair Zomber.
Aye.
That's 3 ayes, the motion passes.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, next item, please.
Item 9 is action on a request to approve revisions to Administrative Policy 7.38, Balanced Assessment Systems, and to approve Administrative Procedure 7.38, Balanced Assessment Systems. The recommendation is that the board approve revisions to Administrative Policy 7.38 and approve implementation of Administrative Procedure 7.38.
Would the administration please present the item?
Chair Zambor, members of the committee, the sponsor of this policy is Dr. Collins, and Dr. Trejo is with her as they present it and answer any questions you may have.
Chair Zambor, members of the committee, Natalie Collins, Director of Research Assessment and Data. The items before you include revisions to Administrative Policy 7.38 Balanced Assessment Systems and the introduction of Administrative Procedure 7.38. The item was originally presented to the board in June 2024, and since that time, we have verified that a list of all assessments is included on the district website, incorporated feedback to address concerns from constituents, and collaborated with the bilingual multicultural education team to revise policy language and create the new procedure. Key revisions to the policy include some of the following: updating terminology such as replacing data warehouse with data dashboard, adding supports and accommodations for English learners and students with disabilities, and providing a one-time exemption for English learners who have been in the United States for less than 12 months and have an English proficiency level below 2.9, being exempt from reading and language arts assessments for up to 1 year. The new procedure ensures consistent application of this policy, detailing aspects of assessment in schools related to test administration, the district assessment calendar, roles of school assessment coordinators, assessment of specific student populations, communication of results to parents, and the process for parent opt-outs. If there are any questions, I would be glad to respond.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, do any members of the public wish to make comments?
They do not.
Okay. Do committee members wish to make comments or ask questions? Director Garcia.
Yes, thank you for the updates. I think that a lot of the concerns that were raised in the June meeting have been addressed in, what you have presented, so I just wanted to thank you for that. And then just for the listening audience, if you can just go a little bit more in depth. I know one of the bigger items that we were kind of concerned about when we were updating this policy were specific to the way that we're responding to Act 20. And I know that there's been a lot of change and clarification from DPI that has come our way, since June, and working, with the different stakeholders that you have brought in. So maybe you can just share a little bit more about that, because I think that's very much worth highlighting.
Administration.
Director Garcia, Chair Zambor, Natalie Collins, Director of Research Assessment and Data. I think what we tried to do is maintain the tenor of what the Act 20 law is asking and requesting, and that would apply. Those good policies and practice would be applicable to really any assessment, and a lot of that related to assessment of specific student populations and what we've outlined and how those students are assessed, including English learners, students with disabilities, students in language immersion programs. I think the large piece that we've been able to update is the parent communication of assessment results, which is really a key component of Act 20, is not just the schools gaining the information on how students are performing towards their literacy acquisition, but the parents' awareness and connection to understanding what that means for their student and gaining literacy skills.
Thank you. Any follow-up?
Just a quick follow-up. I know that a portion of, the discussion around just how we best continue to serve, specifically English language learners in our district is that, last year we submitted a resolution to WASB in regards to, making sure that that becomes a legislative priority, at the district, at the state level. I know that that resolution failed on the floor at the last convention, but we will be resubmitting, so I just wanted to put that for the record, that there's intent to put that forth again so that the state can really talk about, the implications of specifically Act 20 and, how districts have to respond from a legal and compliance issue all the way to a thriving and making sure that students are best supported. So thanks for the work that you're doing, because it's making an impact not only in our district, but really, we're really A lot of districts look to us to the way that we do things. So your leadership is not just felt here, but across the state.
Thank you, Director Garcia.
Director Garcia, on that note, I will note that that is due by the 15th, so it's coming up very quickly, and we can help with that.
Do any other committee members wish to make comments? Director Herndon?
Madam Chair, I recommend that we accept the recommendation of administration on this item.
Both the policy and procedure?
Oh, that's right. I recommend that we accept both the policy and procedure on this item.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Will the secretary please call the roll?
On Director Herndon's motion to accept the administration's recommended policy and procedure revisions, Director Garcia,
Aye.
Director Herndon,
Aye.
Chair Zomber.
Aye.
That's 3 ayes, the motion passes.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, next item, please.
Item 10 is action on a request to reaffirm Administrative Policy 6.10, Employee Assistance Program. The recommendation is that the board reaffirm Administrative Policy 6.10, Employee Assistance Program.
Would the administration please present the item?
Chair Zambor, members of the committee, Eduardo Galvan, interim superintendent. The sponsor of this policy is Ms. Madalini, and with her is Ms. Edie and Mr. Cote.
Thank you, Chair Zambor, members of the committee, Adrian Madalini, Chief Human Resources Officer. With regards to Administrative Policy 6.10, Employee Assistance Program, we believe the language is still applicable today, and no changes are necessary, so we are requesting that the policy be reaffirmed as is. I would like to say that the Employee Assistance Program is an important resource for our employees, and we are very proud and excited to continue to offer these services to our employees. And if there are any questions, we're happy to answer.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, do any members of the public wish to make comments on this item?
We have no speaker slips on this item.
Any committee members wish to make comments? What is the pleasure of the committee with respect to this item? Director Garcia.
I move that we accept administration's recommendation to reaffirm Administrative Policy 6.10.
Thank you. Will the secretary please call the roll?
On Director Garcia's motion to accept administration's recommendation to reaffirm Administrative Policy 6.10, Employee Assistance Program, Director Garcia,
Aye.
Director Herndon,
Aye.
Chair Zomber.
Aye.
That's 3 ayes, the motion passes.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, next item, please.
Item 11 is action on a request to approve revisions to Administrative Policy 6.12, Drug-Free Workplace. The recommendation is that the board approve the proposed revisions to Administrative Policy 6.12, Drug-Free Workplace.
Would the administration please present the item?
Chair Zambor and members of the committee, the sponsor of this policy is Ms. Madalini, and her team is with her to express what the changes are and answer any questions.
Thank you, Chair Zambor, members of the committee, Adrian Madalini, Chief Human Resources Officer. Today, we are requesting a couple minor changes to Administrative Policy 6.12, Drug-Free Workplace. In particular, in paragraph 3 and 4, we just wanted to update some language to include the MPS Employee Handbook and then remove some old collective bargaining agreement language that's no longer applicable. I will also like to note that we have shared these changes with the City Attorney's Office, and they're in agreement with them. And we're happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, do we have any members of the public who wish to make comments?
We do not.
Okay, thank you. How about committee members or Director Leonard?
Actually, I looked over this morning, and I thought, when I had to read the cross out, and I thought, oh, yeah, that's right. That no longer really applies, so good job. It's good that we get it out of there. Thank you.
May I pass the gavel, please? Thank you.
Go ahead, Madam Chair.
Oh, thank you, President Herndon. Maybe this is not the one I want to ask the question on. Okay, sorry, wrong policy. Never mind, I'll take the gavel back. Thank you. What is the pleasure of the committee with respect to this item? Director Garcia.
I move to approve revisions on Administrative Policy 6.12.
Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
On Director Garcia's motion to approve revisions to Administrative Policy 6.12, Drug-Free Workplace, Director Garcia,
Aye.
Director Herndon,
Aye.
Chair Zomber.
Aye.
That's 3 ayes, the motion passes.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, next item, please.
Item 12 is action on a request to reaffirm Administrative Policy 6.13, Drug and Alcohol Testing. The recommendation is that the board reaffirm Administrative Policy 6.13, Drug and Alcohol Testing.
Would the administration please present the item?
Chair Zambor, members of the committee, Eduardo Galvan, interim superintendent. The sponsor of this policy is Ms. Madaleni, and her and the team are here to present it and answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Chair Zambor, members of the committee, Adrian Madaleni, Chief Human Resources Officer. Tonight, we're requesting that Administrative Policy 6.13, Drug and Alcohol Testing, be reaffirmed. The language is still applicable. We follow all the provisions in this policy, and therefore, we ask that you reaffirm, and we're happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, do we have any members of the public who wish to comment?
We do not.
Do committee members wish to make comments or ask questions? President Herndon.
I move that we accept Administrative Policy 6.13.
Thank you. May I pass the gavel before we? Thank you. I just have a quick question around drug and alcohol testing. I know sometimes the drug testing can kind of hold up the hiring process. So that's usually like an external vendor that does that for us. Are we ever able to actually do that service in-house with our own staff, like medical staff?
Administration.
Chair Zambor, members of the committee, Adrian Madaleni, Chief Human Resources Officer. We have had discussions. Our vendor currently is Concentra when it comes to pre-employment physicals, which includes the drug test. We've had discussions about them being able even to come on site and trying to do drug testing here. They were not comfortable liability-wise like doing that, so we have not done that. But I will say what we have changed is we've moved to a rapid screen for the drug tests, so we're able to get those results within a day. So that makes it go faster. We have also contracted, in addition with Concentra, with Freightert, so to do overflow. So like specifically right now for food service, we send them directly to Freightert, so that they don't have to worry about Concentra being overwhelmed and they can get in faster. So we are very cognizant of making sure people can get their physicals as quickly as possible so we can get them in, always keeping an eye on it and trying to improve and speed up the process as much as possible.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any follow-up?
I'll take the gavel back. Thank you.
I'm passing the gavel.
All right. Madam Secretary, may you please call the roll?
On Director's motion to approve administration's recommendations to Policy 6.13, Drug and Alcohol Testing, Director Garcia,
Aye.
Director Herndon,
Aye.
Chair Zomber.
Aye.
That's 3 ayes, the motion passes.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, next item, please.
Item 13 is action on a request to approve revisions to Administrative Policy 6.14, Personnel Records. The recommendation is that the board approve the revisions to Administrative Policy 6.14, Personnel Records.
Would the administration please present the item?
Chair Zambor and members of the committee, Eduardo Galvan, interim superintendent. The sponsor of this policy is Ms. Madaleni, and her and the team are here to present it and answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Chair Zambor, members of the committee, Adrian Madaleni, Chief Human Resources Officer. Today, we're requesting some revisions to Administrative Policy 6.14, Personnel Records. In particular, in paragraphs 1 and 2, we have changed the name from department to office just to clarify our structure here at the district level. And also, we clarified under paragraph 2 the specific citation for employee records and inspections of personnel files. And lastly, at the direction of the city attorney's office, we added paragraph 3, which clarifies some language of when the Office of Human Resources will have the responsibility to hand over those letters of reference or recommendations that are requested to board governance so that they can make the determination on releasing them and notifying the individuals on if it won't be released and why. And with that, we'll answer any questions you may have.
Thank you for that specificity. Madam Secretary, do we have any members of the public who wish to make comments?
We do not.
Do committee members wish to make comments or ask questions? What is the pleasure of the committee? Director Garcia.
I move to approve the revisions to Administrative Policy 6.14.
Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
On Director Garcia's motion to approve the administration's recommended revisions to Administrative Policy 6.14, Director Garcia,
Aye.
Director Herndon,
Aye.
Chair Zomber.
Aye.
That is 3 ayes, the motion passes.
Madam Secretary, next item, please.
Item 14 is action on a request to approve revisions to Administrative Policy 6.18, definitions, staff. The recommendation is that the board approve the revisions to Administrative Policy 6.18, definitions, staff.
Would the administration please present the item?
Chair Zambor, members of the committee, the sponsor of this policy is Ms. Madalini, and her team are here to present it and answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Chair Zambor, members of the committee, Adrian Madalini, Chief Human Resources Officer. Tonight, we're requesting some revisions to Administrative Policy 6.18, definition staff. In particular, we're requesting the removal of paragraph 3 regarding non-represented staff. Since Act 10, we, in the Office of Human Resources and the district, we don't really classify individuals as non-represented. We just now identify them as certificated and classified. So therefore, we thought it was appropriate to make that change. And if you have any questions, we're happy to answer them.
Do committee members wish to make comments, ask questions, or make a motion? Director Garcia.
I move to approve revisions on Administrative Policy 6.18.
Will the secretary please call the roll?
Director Garcia's motion to approve revisions to Administrative Policy 6.18, Director Garcia,
Aye.
Director Herndon,
Aye.
Chair Zomber.
Aye.
That is 3 ayes, the motion passes.
Madam Secretary, next item, please.
Item 15 is action on a request to approve revisions to Administrative Policy 6.28, resignation, staff. The recommendation is that the board approve the revisions to Administrative Policy 6.28, resignation, staff.
Would the administration please present the item?
Chair Zambor, members of the committee, Eduardo Galvan, interim superintendent. The sponsor of this policy is Ms. Madalini, and her staff are here to present and answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Chair Zambor, members of the committee, Adrian Madalini, Chief Human Resources Officer. Tonight, we are requesting some revisions to Administrative Policy 6.28, resignation staff. Under paragraph 1A, we just have a grammatical change that we wanted to make. And under subsection, or paragraph 2, classified staff, we removed that last part of the section regarding filing resignations with the Milwaukee City Service Commission. Since we took over the hiring process probably 10 years or so ago, we no longer provide those resignations to the Civil Service Commission, so the language is no longer necessary. And I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay. Do any committee members, members of the public wish to make comments or ask questions or make a motion? President Herndon.
I move that we accept the recommendation of administration on Administrative Policy 6.28.
Okay. Will the secretary please, oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Chason.
Thank you.
Cruising right on.
Thank you, Chair Zomber, Matt Chason, Office of Accountability and Efficiency. We have updated our practice at the request of the board recently to include a listing of classified staff who have also resigned. That is noted in the original policy under 1B, this might be an opportunity to codify that practice under classified staff as well. Doesn't have to happen tonight, but just wanted to bring that to the attention of the board and the administration. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Jason. What is the pleasure of the committee? We have a motion.
Have a motion.
Okay. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
On Director Herndon's motion to approve the administration's recommendations of revisions to Administrative Policy 6.28, Director Garcia,
Aye.
Director Herndon,
Aye.
Chair Zomber.
Aye.
That's 3 ayes, the motion passes.
Madam Secretary, next item, please.
Item 16 is action on a request to approve revisions to Administrative Policy 6.29, Retirements, Staff. The recommendation is that the board approve the revisions to Administrative Policy 6.29, Retirements, Staff.
Would the administration please present the item?
Chair Zomber, members of the committee, the sponsor of this policy is Ms. Madalini, and her team are here to describe changes and answer any questions.
Thank you. Chair Zambor, members of the committee, Adrian Madelini, Chief Human Resources Officer. Tonight, we're asking that some revisions be made to Administrative Policy 6.29, Retirement Staff. In particular, in paragraph 1, we thought it was important to include the specific citation under the Wisconsin statute with regards to the definition of teachers. And also under paragraph 2, we wanted to revise the language to address the fact that this past year, there's been a change in the law where now any new hire as of January 1 of this year for the district will be enrolled in the Wisconsin retirement system. The ERS, the employee retirement system at the city has been closed for any new participants. So we just wanted to clarify that now any new classified staff will be a part of WRS versus ERS. And also, the city attorney did review these changes and approve them, and we're happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, do any members of the public wish to make comments?
Nope.
Do any committee members wish to make comments or ask questions? What is the pleasure of the committee with respect to this item? Director Garcia.
I move to approve revisions on Administrative Policy 6.29.
Will the secretary please call the roll?
On Director Garcia's motion to approve revisions to Administrative Policy 6.29, Director Garcia,
Aye.
Director Herndon,
Aye.
Chair Zomber.
Aye.
That's 3 ayes, the motion passes.
Madam Secretary, next item, please.
Item 17 is action on a request to approve revisions to Administrative Policy and Procedure 8.35, Inoculation of Students. The recommendation is that the board approve the revisions to Administrative Policy 8.35, Inoculation of Students.
Would the administration please present the item?
Chair Zomber, members of the committee, Eduardo Galvan, interim superintendent. The sponsor of this policy is Dr. Pinter, and Jennifer Mims-Howell and here are here to present and answer any questions you may have.
Chair Zomber, members of the committee, Travis Pinter, Senior Director of Specialized Services. You see before you a short policy, but we made a few changes on it. One was to update the language, 2 were for some minor grammatical fixes, and then 3, probably most importantly, bringing Wisconsin closer in line with Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices and also with neighboring states' school requirements. And then lastly, the existing exemption options were retained.
Would any committee members wish to make comments or ask questions? No? What is the pleasure of the committee with respect to this item? President Herndon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that we accept the recommendation of the administration on Administrative Policy 8.35.
Will the secretary please call the roll?
On President Herndon's motion to accept the administration's recommended revisions to Administrative Policy and Procedure 8.35, Director Garcia,
Aye.
Director Herndon,
Aye.
Chair Zomber.
Aye.
That's 3 ayes, the motion passes.
Madam Secretary, next item, please.
Item 18 is action on a request to revise Administrative Policies 8.42, Student Records. The recommendation is that the board approve the proposed revision as presented in the attachment.
Would the administration please present the item?
Chair Zomber, members of the committee, Eduardo Galvan, interim superintendent, the sponsor of this policy, and Mr. Boswell, and Dr. Hill is with him. They can outline changes and answer any questions you may have.
Mr. Boswell?
Good afternoon, Chair Zomber, members of the committee, Matthew Boswell, Senior Director of the Department of Student Services. Yes, on January 23rd, 2024, at the LRP committee meeting, the board directed administration to update Administrative Policy 8.42 to reflect that all requests for directory data by the military go through the Department of Student Services. This item is indicated in Administrative Policy 8.42 on page 7 of 11. F number 1. Additionally, an additional change is reflected to align with current state statute 118.125, paren 4, which refers to the transfer of student records to a resident school district no later than the next working day. The current policy reflects within 5 business days. That change to Administrative Policy 8.42 is indicated on page 8 of 11. Paren C. At this time, we'll take any questions.
Thank you for those updates. Do committee members wish to make comments or ask questions? Do we have any members of the public wish to speak? President Herndon.
Thank you. I do have a question, and that is, I've heard on occasion that students that come from schools outside of the district, that the pupils' records don't necessarily show up in the school that they need to be. Is that a problem? And if so, how are you handling that?
Administration.
Chair Zomber, members of the committee. Yes, when a student comes from outside of our district, we immediately request the records upon arrival. And we do have checks and balances in place to make sure that we receive that record in a timely fashion. The old state statute indicated 5 days. Now it's 1. So we just have to make sure that we do our due diligence, which we have always done in terms of receiving records. I have a very good relationship with student services directors in the media area and across the state, because we just transfer information back and forth. So I am 100% confident that we'll continue to meet the change in the state stature. We have the policies in place and the practices to do so.
Okay, thank you. Madam Chair, I recommend that we accept the recommendation of administration on policy 8.42.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
On President Herndon's motion to approve the administration's recommendations to recommended policy changes to 8.42 student records, Director Garcia.
Aye.
Director Herndon.
Aye.
Chair Zomber.
Aye.
That's 3 ayes, the motion passes.
Madam Secretary, next item, please.
Item 19 is action on a request to reaffirm Administrative Policy 8.47, Children's Internet Protection Act. The recommendation is that the board reaffirm Administrative Policy 8.47, Children's Internet Protection Act.
Would the administration please present the item?
Chair Zomber, members of the committee, Eduardo Galvan, interim superintendent. The sponsor of this policy is Ms. Mims Howell, and with her is Mr. Chad Meyer to outline any changes and to answer any questions.
Chair Zomber, members of the committee, Chad Meyer, Senior Director, Department of Technology. This policy has been reviewed thoroughly. There are not any modifications we're requesting, and please let us know if you have any questions.
Thank you. Do committee members wish to make comments or ask questions? What's the pleasure of the committee with respect to this item? Director Garcia.
I'd like to reaffirm Administrative Policy 8.47.
Will the secretary please call the roll?
On Director Garcia's motion to reaffirm Policy 8.47, Director Garcia.
Aye.
Director Herndon.
Aye.
Chair Zomber.
Aye.
That's 3 ayes, the motion passes.
Madam Secretary, next item, please.
Item 20 is action on a request to revise Administrative Policies 8.48, Student Internet Safety and Acceptable Use Policy. The recommendation is that the board approve the proposed revisions as indicated in the attachments.
Would the administration please present this item?
Chair Zambor, members of the committee, the sponsor of this policy is Mr. Meyer, and he is here to answer any questions you may have.
Chair Zambor, members of the committee, Chad Meyer, Senior Director, Department of Technology. The policy before you this evening was approved by the board in June of 2024. We're requesting approval of a minor addition to the language in the policy, which will allow the district to apply for a federal funding opportunity related to Wi-Fi hotspots for students in need. The language being added to the policy is a requirement for this opportunity under the E-rate program. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you for bringing this policy forward. Do committee members wish to make comments or ask questions? What's the pleasure of the committee with respect to this item? Motion? Director Garcia.
I move to accept administration's recommendation to the administrative policies 8.48.
Will the secretary please call the roll?
On Director Garcia's motion to accept administration's recommendations to revise policies 8.48, Director Garcia?
Aye.
Director Herndon?
Aye.
Chair Zomber?
Aye.
That's 3 ayes, the motion passes.
Madam Secretary, next item, please.
Item 21 is action on a request to approve revisions to Administrative Policy 2.10, Administrative Reports. The recommendation is that the board approve the revisions to Administrative Policy 2.10, Administrative Reports.
Would the administration please present the item?
Chair Zambor, members of the committee, Eduardo Galvan, interim superintendent. The sponsor of this policy is Mr. Harris, and he is here with Ms. Howell to answer any questions you may have after they present the changes.
Thank you.
Good evening, Director Zambor, members of the committee, Michael Harris, Interim Chief School Administration Officer. We are looking to revise Administrative Policy 2.10 to really align our work and to provide transparency on our performance on our school improvement plans. And so we would like to bring data based on our school improvement plans by semester to report out to the board to show the progress in our schools.
Thank you. We do have one member of the public who wishes to make comments. Quentin Claybon. Can you state your name and spell your name for the record, please?
Hello. Hey, this is Quentin Claybon, K-L-A-B-O-N. I hope you don't mind holding this one up. To start, I hope you could specify some of the tests mentioned. I forgot whether you're switching entirely from STAR to Ames Web Plus due to the Act 20 reading reforms, but if you are doing both, it would still be good to specify that since it will trigger notifications to parents and DPI is going to tightly monitor it. Additionally, it may be worth specifying pre-ACT and ACT scores. Speaking more broadly, I hope that you could strike a balance between too much information and too little. I think solely moving to regions may blend very dissimilar schools together. Sharing combined data for My Year in Holmes or German and Marshall obscures matters for the board rather than reveals. The board may want to have both regions and schools provided to give the high and low level analysis. In order to improve graduation rates, the board may want to add the percentage of students on track to graduate based on their credits. And then last, the board may want to add the cost to operate each school and the amount of revenue it receives. Doing so will ensure that board members see by semester whether individual schools are equitably funded given their need. Additionally, given the MPS Facilities Plan website update this last week, projecting long-term unfortunate population decline in our city, it would be helpful to know if any school's costs are rising beyond reason, not because of student need, which always must be met, but because of sparse usage of staff or building space. Thank you.
Thank you. Do committee members wish to make comments or ask questions? Director Leonard.
So I have actually a few questions. I'm a little bit confused because I see us getting rid of some things that I would still want to have. And number one, so we are not receiving any more school information and we're going to combine everything into regions. I do believe that would be causing confusion. I'm not sure how that is giving us more transparency. That's I guess my first question.
Administration.
Director Leonard, Chair Zambor, again, based upon our school improvement plans, we wanted to align what was reported in the school improvement plan more to the report. So something in terms of like some of these items wouldn't be, like a mean grade point average isn't listed in the school improvement plan, so that was the intent.
Any follow-up?
Yeah, I understand that. I guess my question first is that, are we still receiving school-by-school reports? Because it says region, and I'm not sure why we went right to a region and not schools. I mean, I can compile data in both sections, but I mean, I'm just a little bit confused on how we're doing this.
Administration.
Director Zambor, Director Leonard, members of the committee. So when we're looking at, of course, we would still be collecting individual school data because we're monitoring and supporting those schools on a daily basis. But we wanted to make sure that the board and our constituents were hearing about the information on how we were doing by region because we align our supports by region. So it was really important for us to really make sure that schools are not creating school improvement plans and they're sitting on a shelf. We wanted to make sure that these are active and live documents, that we are monitoring the goals and the tasks that we have identified as school leaders in the schools to say these are the things that we believe will show improvements in our student academic achievement, improving our climate and culture, and it's another way for us to ensure that we are holding folks accountable to implement the strategies and tools that they've identified in those school improvement plans and be able to report out to the public and to the board as well.
Thank you. Any follow-up?
And then just, so we're going to get rid of budget and expenditures per school? I mean, I guess I'm on the same, I guess my concern is that I would like to be able, I like all that data to be available to board directors. And what I'm afraid of is that as board directors, we're not going to receive detailed data. And and I don't want to get ourselves into a situation where we do not receive that. So I guess I need assurances that some of these things will still be in place. FTEs would be good to know. I know that I use them when I'm doing my budget work. So I'm curious as to where we're going with that.
Administration.
Director Leonard, yes, so of course the budget and expenditures, the HR staffing, those things are reported monthly. So we felt again that we wanted to really align this policy to ensure that all of our schools are implementing their school improvement plans, to ensure that those clearly identified strategies and tools that they've listed are being implemented in their school and being monitored to show progress with our students. But those last three bullets there are reported out monthly throughout the school year.
Okay. Thank you.
Other committee members wish, go ahead. Ms. Mims Howell.
Chair John Bohr, members of the committee, Jennifer Mims Howell, Chief Academic Officer. And also in working with collaboration with Mr. Harris, what we also want to do is show you the supports we're providing to the schools. As Mr. Jagaman reported in an earlier item during the the PACE committee, we're making sure that we put the supports into each school that's needed. We're doing it from a regional standpoint by looking at what are the school improvement plan goals, what's the evidence that we need to provide to each school to make sure they have what they need, and also looking at the number of student suspensions as that affects the daily attendance, as that also affects the official student enrollment. We're just trying to wrap everything into the supports that we're doing for our school improvement plans, while you can still ask for individual data on school. With 154 schools, each year we never get to showcase all of them. So regionally, we can talk about the highlights in each region. We can definitely do that. But then also, like Mr. Harris said, as we support, our supports are regional, our intentions are specific to what schools need, but this will also make sure that we are meeting the needs of the schools based on a tiered system.
President Herndon.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. My question would be along the same line, but in that you're capturing the data and reporting by region, that would mean that you still have the school detail, right? And if you had the school detail and we requested that information, you'd be able to provide it. Okay, thank you.
Director Garcia.
Yes, so I know that in our discussion right now, I think that, to the gentleman that spoke in regards to, just the concerns in regards to, just pointing out specific, like, data points that, might get lost in a, larger data set. I think that, to speak to the fact that, we have specific staff that's dedicated to working specifically with schools that are broken down by region. So just because we're reconfiguring what reporting looks like does not mean that we're not doing the work to support individual schools. What I will say in regards to, what is before us presented, if we are already doing the school by school, and then this is specifically targeting, informing SIP plans, is there any way that we can tie this policy specifically to SIP plan? I don't see any language on that, reflected in this policy right now. So the intent is to, kind of marry those items together. Maybe it's worthwhile seeing what that relationship will be moving forward. And then secondly, if we already have that data and we're specifying, the type of test that we are looking at, would it be possible just to keep, reporting on school and maybe keep both school and region in regards to the way that, the data is kind of spliced, if that makes sense?
Administration.
Chair Zambor, Director Garcia, Jennifer Mims Howe, Chief Academic Officer. We definitely could make sure that information is available. Again, 154 schools reporting on it individually. We could definitely report it out regionally, but have, like you said, the breakdown by school if that's what you're requesting. Yes. And also, too, our school improvement plan, we have named it in the policy. We wrote that in as bullet number it's the second bullet now. And I think as relationship to the types of assessments or types of data that come into our school improvement plan, we could even maybe break down the types of information that our school improvement plan includes regionally as well, if that would help for the SIP. SIP is school improvement plan, so that help?
Yeah, I think
Okay.
so.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other follow-up? Is there any further discussion? Oh, Mr. Chason.
Thank you, Chair Zambor. Matt Chason, Office of Accountability and Efficiency. It's not uncommon in organizations for policy and practice to drift, and I think that's what we're seeing with 210 here. That I cannot recall in recent memory any production, and this is a new administration with new staff that has been appointed, and they've inherited the practice. But I'm unfamiliar with this being satisfied in any form at the end of each semester in recent memory to begin with. So. In terms of the practice, the board has not been getting any of the data that's here, in its unredlined version. So in terms of a baseline of how the board wants to proceed, that I think that's worthy of probably a longer, broader discussion. But that's the 2 cents from the OAE. Thank you.
Thank you. May I pass the gavel, please?
Go ahead, please.
Thank you. Can the administration just talk a little bit more? Because when I first looked at this, I was also a little alarmed about, what was getting crossed off. And I want to make sure that there are other ways or maybe other times when the board is getting the information about the amount it costs to operate a school versus the amount of money that it receives. And I know we get the staffing levels, at AFP, or we can get more detail at AFP. But just around the budget and expenditures, is there anything else that satisfies that item that we can bring forward more frequently, even if it's not every semester? Is that something we can maybe have more detailed around budget time, administration? Oh, sorry. I'm not chair, you're chair. Administration.
Director Zomber, members of the committee. Again, as mentioned, so when we talk about budget and expenditures, that would be presented during budget cycles, and for example, when we get our third Friday and we're going to present, what every school's enrollment is, what the changes that would bring. So that would be an opportunity there. And then again, when we have those further budget discussions to create next year's budget, we'll have that. Attendance is available. When we talk about, as been mentioned before, when we talk about FTEs, that's always mentioned when we talk about, when we give our monthly report. So this information is present in other forms. We could, make sure we outline when we present those so that you are aware of that.
Thank you. I will take the gavel back. Thank you. I just respect that, these are living documents, and just because we approve something tonight doesn't mean that it has to stay that way for the next few years. We can always come back to it. So what is the pleasure of the committee with respect to this item? Director Garcia.
I move that we approve the revisions to Administrative Policy 2.10.
Will the secretary please call the roll?
On Director Garcia's motion to approve revisions to Administrative Policy 2.10, Director Garcia.
Aye.
Director Herndon.
Aye.
Chair Zomber.
Aye.
That's 3 ayes, the motion passes.
Madam Secretary, next item, please.
Item 22 is action on a request to approve revisions to Administrative Policy 2.05, School Building Administration, and Administrative Procedure 2.05, School Building Administration. Madam Chair, the administration has asked for this item to be withdrawn.
Thank you. Just a quick question. Is administration planning on bringing this item back?
Chair Zomber, members of the committee, we will bring this item back.
Thank you. What is the next item, please?
Madam Chair, that was the last item on this meeting's agenda.
There being no further business before the committee, this meeting is adjourned.